Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. Today is Tuesday, September the 12th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. I'd like to advise that tonight we do have a member, Selectman Renee Imke, that's attending remotely. So all of our votes tonight will be by roll call. And then also there was an amendment to our agenda this evening. We had an appointment scheduled for 7:30 with the Village at Flat Hill trustees to discuss some Flat Hill drainage concerns. Unfortunately, they're not able to attend, so that was canceled. So I expect that we will have a much shorter meeting tonight than we've been having lately. So with that, I will open to the board for any public comments this evening.
Mr. Chair, I just want to offer all of my condolences and everybody to the town of Leominster and even Fitchburg with the incredible flooding that happened yesterday. Some of the pictures that are showing from the mayor and other people is just horrible, horrible damage. It's going to take months to repair either the physical municipal infrastructure or personal residences and businesses. It was really just a horrible event, and I just pray that tomorrow the rain is not going to recause or cause more damage because the ground is so saturated. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Have any other public comments this evening from the board?
Just that an announcement. There is a pancake breakfast tomorrow at the Eagle House Adult Activity Center from 8 a.m. until 10:30 a.m.
All right, thank you. I do not have any public comments. I'm going to turn to the public. Do we have any public comments this evening from the public? I know your names, but please state them in your address as well.
Good evening. Tom Bodkin, 64 Beale Street.
Tim Murphy, 97 Island Road.
And I know this is a little bit unusual, but we're having the Oktoberfest this Saturday, and I think yesterday's events, as Tom Alonso just mentioned, kind of brought it to the fore. So there was a discussion about postponing potentially because of Hurricane Lee is barreling up, but so the weather is kind of up in the air for Saturday. And so there was discussion, and I was like, whoa, it's not that easy because we have a license for Saturday. We can't just let's do it on Sunday. It's not that easy. So that kind of brought up the idea. So this all happened today. So we're here basically just not so much for a decision, but just to know if it is an option, if we could, in the event that we have to postpone for rain, that we could use the license on Sunday rather than Saturday, which in hindsight now we should have done both days.
Should have had a rain day to start.
So we'll do that next year, but so that's why we're here. And I know it's out of order in the sense of, typically these things have to be posted, but I guess this falls under somewhat exigent circumstances in terms of, I think it brought it to the fore because like yesterday's storm, I was heading home and I didn't even know there was going to be this huge storm, and it just kind of came out of nowhere, So we're kind of just seeing what our options are, and we perfectly understand if that's not something the board's inclined to do or whatever, but that's really what we're looking for is basically the approval of the board. If we need to push it to Sunday, that we'd be able to basically push both licenses to that day from Saturday,
So, although this is a public comment, I will respond.
Right.
We have a meeting scheduled for Thursday. We'll amend our agenda to add this one to the agenda for Thursday so it can be approved before Sunday.
Okay. And can we get a sense of whether or not the board might approve it? Because we need to start advertising too. As soon as people, our committee wants to make a decision like tonight or tomorrow, if we're going to do it on Sunday instead of Saturday. If I had a sense if we could take an informal poll of the board to see whether or not they might approve that on Thursday. Then if the committee wants to start advertising Sunday, we could theoretically do that.
I will say that it's not common for the select board to respond to a public comment. We do get questions often, and we often don't answer them. But I think that this is a really important community function, and I will ask my colleagues if they are inclined or have any strong objections to this, starting with Selectman Imke.
Yes, I have no objections and would support the rain date.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
I will be more political and say, I don't know of any, so I'll withhold the vote till then, but I think you got a unanimous vote before, and, you know, before the chair reminded me that we have a meeting on Zoom on Thursday, I would have loved to say yes tonight, but I would have been unable to, so I'm glad that we do have one and we
That's
can
great.
repost, so.
Divine intervention.
That's absolutely.
Mr. Rizzo.
I definitely don't have an issue with it as long as there are no like serious conflicts or anything. So
Yeah.
Mr. Franco.
Yeah, that's my, I have no personal objection whatsoever to it. Not that a personal objection would matter at all, but I have no objection to it other than making sure that it's, that the posting and the timing and all of that is compliant and that our doing that is not outside of our authority. So my inclination is to say yes, as long as all those conditions are met.
Sure.
Thank you.
The short answer is I don't have any concerns, but the longer answer is I think it's very important for people in government to be people of faith, and while we have strong separation, I think anything we can do to encourage people to have a faith and participate is a good thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so
Great.
certainly
Thank
no
you.
objection from me.
Thank you, Mike.
My only objection would be the same one I voiced then, which is I object to Oktoberfest being in September, and still in September.
It does cause some confusion.
Yeah, well, that's
But
what I
there's
mean.
so many events.
So can you work on that? Can you work on that next year?
It's kind of like showing up at the store and you see the Christmas stuff out, and you know, it's
Yeah, like in July?
too soon. But thank you. And Murphy's Law being what it is, we'll probably end up going ahead on Saturday anyways. But we just want to know what the options are.
So we will amend, it is a Zoom
Thank you.
meeting. It is a
Okay.
Zoom meeting, so it's a remote attendance.
Okay.
And it
Well,
should be a
that-
pretty straightforward
Great.
request.
Thanks a lot. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
Good luck.
Have a good evening. See you on Saturday, Sunday.
Do we have any other public comments this evening from the public? All right, hearing none. Any announcements tonight to the town manager?
Yes, I'll start with what I usually end my start with my town manager report with. The farmers market is every Sunday from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. That's until mid-October. That's on the Ritter Lawn. The Discovery Center for Civic Engagement and the Lunenburg Council on Aging have partnered together, and they have an event tomorrow night, 4 to 7 p.m. That's at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center. That's the volunteer fair that they have, so we encourage people to show up to that event. And the warrant for the special town meeting closes on Monday, September 18th at 5 p.m., and the special town meeting is on November 14th at 7 p.m. at the Lunenburg Middle School, High School Auditorium.
All right, thank you for those. And anyone interested, please be sure to come forward. We really will appreciate that. All right, we are at 7:09, so at 7:10, I'll just talk through it till we get there. At 7:10, we have a joint meeting with the Cemetery Commission related to an ARPA request. So the time is 7:09. If the Cemetery Commissioners are in attendance, I know you have to wait just a couple more seconds, but I will turn it to you, Nancy, to call your meeting to order. And we do have to wait till the time, so just give it a couple more seconds. But what you want to do is call your meeting to order, and I'll pause once we hit the exact time here.
You want me to come up there?
Please. Yeah.
They're posted for 7.
Oh, you guys are posted for 7 tonight?
Yes.
Yes, then you can start your meeting now. Excellent.
But I have to call it to order.
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to call our cemetery meeting to order. All in favor? Aye. So the Cemetery Commission wanted to thank you all again for allowing me to speak. I wanted to make sure you all have your packages there, and we'll go through this presentation, and I'm going to show you some different pictures as we go through it. So I would like to again say thank you to the Select Board and the Town Manager for allowing me the time to present the Cemetery Commission restoration of the North Cemetery boundaries presentation. I would ask, if at all possible, if there was any questions, can it wait until the end of the presentation? That would be wonderful. So the Cemetery Commission stands before the Select Board members and Town Manager to present recovery options to repair the North Cemetery boundary and request funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. This next slide, which is the bottom line up front, I'd like to start with that slide because basically what it does, it will give you the clarity by putting the most important details first. So you may quickly understand the key message of tonight's presentation. The current condition of the 100-year-old Abrevieties hedge boundary line needs to be restored to preserve the peace, the tranquility, and honor contained within the North Cemetery. The replacement costs of these hedges are estimated at approximately $185,000. There are additional costs with this, which are, we have no electricity. We would have to have electricity. We do not have enough water to support this, and there'll be yearly maintenance, which will rise the life cycle cost significantly. The preferred solution is to put in a permanent New England rustic fieldstone wall, which the estimated cost of is about $288,000 to $388,000. But this will reduce the life cycle cost associated with that asset. The Cemetery Commission recommends to the Select Board members to move forward with securing from the American Rescue Plan Act significant funding for a New England rustic fieldstone wall versus the hedges, the hemlock hedges. Now I'm going to go to this first picture here. And I want you to basically again see what we have at the cemetery today. And here are, again, I'm going to go through some facts on these other slides. So these hedges, which were just about 100 years old, were severely pruned in July of this year. This picture represents a snapshot of the current condition of the hedges today. Following the pruning, several licensed and professional arborists were called in by the Cemetery Commission to make recommendations regarding the recovery options to these hedges. The recommendations were all simple. Because of the lack of historical maintenance and limited access to water, because the North Cemetery has no irrigation available, the landmark hedges are likely to be beyond recovery. Arborists have advised us not to put good money toward working to improve their health due to an expected poor outcome, and instead recommending removing them. Now here's some more facts as we go down through. So again, the replacement costs for these hedges are estimated at about $185,000. Anderson Landscaping and Construction came into one of our meetings and walked us through the process. This was basically a facts-finding session with the Cemetery Commission and also the DPW director. The recommendation at first was for him to install 173 young trees up to 6 to 7 feet tall. He would then take out the stumps, set in new planting bed and mulch, And then he would give allowance for watering for one season. That allowance is about $3,000 for one season to have water brought in, because the cemetery can't handle the water today. That is going to be cost prohibitive. And it is because of the lack of water and the irrigation that we do not have at the cemetery. The problem is in these states of, it's my understanding from the arborists, from 1 year to 3 years, that's what you have for these to mature. And if you don't water them right, they're going to die. So spending $185,000 to watch them wither and die is probably not a good thing to do unless we have the water available. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. I would like to point in your package today, Mr. Anderson gave an estimated cost. He also gave for not only the hedges, but also a stone wall. I just wanted to bring that out to make sure that you saw that in your package, and that's for you to review. Now, I'm going to pass this off, and I'm going to put another picture up. Now, this picture is at the South Cemetery, and the reason that I put this up is simply because it gives the example of the required seasonal care and maintenance to keep these trees thriving and to looking their best. I went over there the other day to look at the South Cemetery, and I was blown away because what we had was beautiful, and the South Cemetery obviously shows that. It's hard as a cemetery commission to take something down that's been there for 100 years. I feel very, very bad about this. But understanding we're all moving forward, trying to get to the best solution we can for the town, for the cemetery commission, and for the Board of Select. So the concerns that we have, again, is the cost is going to be a significant amount of money for both the watering and maintenance care of these trees for 3 years and beyond. Like we said, the cost for watering will be about $3,000 per season. This will raise the life cycle cost significantly. The North Cemetery, because of, again, the issues with the water that we keep talking about, there is additional cost that if we had to drill a well would be $15,000 or better. That does not include the pump, that does not include the piping, that doesn't include anything, no electricity. So there's an additional cost. The other cost that we're not thinking about will need to be done will be the construction cost to a well house, a pump house, something where the pump and the controls can stay out of the weather and be okay. There is one more solution, possibility, is to look at, to tie into the water system on Highland Street. A, is that possible? B, is that truly an option that we can do? And what would the cost be? I don't know the answers to that yet, but I wanted to bring it up to the board. The Cemetery Commission, oops, sorry, let me pause for a moment. The Cemetery Commission would like to give their permission, or preferred solution, I should say, to put a permanent New England rustic fieldstone wall, which the estimate range will be between $288,000 to $388,000, which reduces the life cycle cost associated with this asset. As you can see by this wall was created by Mr. Ramsden, which is Ramsden Stone Walls and Waterproofing, which he has provided us an estimate of a freestanding New England rustic fieldstone wall at North Cemetery, which is also in your package, This particular wall was created at the Lexington Road Cemetery in Lincoln, and it was between 1 to 2 years ago. The difference will be if we go forward, and this is decided eventually, this is a 2-foot wall. We would be getting a 3-foot wall to match all the other walls that are in that North Cemetery that surround. The highlights include removing the large hedges as they are today, disposal of the hedges and the stumps, excavation and installation of the crushed stone footing, 6,180 square face feet of freestanding rustic semi-formal dry stack New England field stone wall at $40 per face feet. Again, that particular information is in your package for your review. The Cemetery Commission would like to request $350,000 of restoration of the North Cemetery boundaries. The Cemetery Commission would like to advocate for the North Cemetery with her beauty and tranquility from within. The last picture. Thank you. This says it all. So the Cemetery Commission would like to advocate for the North Cemetery with her beauty again and tranquility from within. Building a New England rustic fieldstone wall will complete and will complement the already freestanding stone walls from within their boundaries, which have stood the test of time, as we can see here. Many Lunenburg town families and veterans have long passed and are in their final resting places. This design honors their contributions to our town, provides lasting beauty for at least the next 300 years. Today, the Cemetery Commission recommends to the Select Board members to move forward with building a New England rustic fieldstone wall to enhance the beauty within. The Cemetery Commission also supports the Select Board request to use the stabilization fund at this fall's town meeting so more funds are available for the American Rescue Plan Act. I would just like to take a few minutes. The Cemetery Commission would like to show their appreciation to the following individuals and establishments. We'd like to say thank you to the Select Board members allowing the Cemetery Commission to present this presentation during your weekly town meeting. We'd like to say thank you to Dillis and Roy Civil Design Group. As you could see, one of his pictures was there. Also Alpha Graphics in Shirley. Fred Anderson for putting his information together for us, his estimate. Also for Brett Ramsden from Ramsden Stone Walls. Matt May from Lakeview Landscaping and Irrigation. Mark Flagg, Tree Service Arborist, Central Mass Gardens, Einstein Solutions, and especially I'd like to say thank you for his dedication and help preparing this package is Dave Duran, which is the Vice Chair and Clerk of the Cemetery Commission. And I'd like to say also to Bill Bernard, thank you. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Nancy, for this presentation. I think this is one of the few times that we've had storyboards during presentations, which are always really good to see. Excellent visuals. I think we're all very familiar with Brett and the work that Mr. Ramsden has done around town, and of course he's a resident of our town, so I have a lot of confidence in the estimate that he provided for you. I'm going to turn to the members of the board for any questions that they may have. I'm going to start with Selectman Imke, who's on the screen behind you.
Okay.
And
hi, I don't have any questions at this point. I don't, obviously, being remote, I don't have the packet, but maybe I can pick it up. I don't know if I'll be able to get there this week, actually. So I would reserve any questions or comments till I've had a chance to review the material.
All right, we'll make sure we get that. We'll make sure we get that to you. Thank you. I'll go down the line here.
Oh, so, sorry. First of all, thank you for the excellent presentation.
You're welcome.
It's nice to be able to follow along and pictures and everything, so excellently done. So I have a couple of questions. The first one is you mentioned at several points in here the life cycle cost. Do you have any numbers to say what that life cycle cost would be? And is there anything that would need to be done to the stone walls during their lifetime?
Okay, so I can speak about the hedges. It's my understanding, and I don't know the years of the growth, so we'll say they're at least going to take 3 years. They're going to be 6 to 7 feet anyway. It's my understanding after talking with Lakeview that you're going to be able to, and just so you know, let me back up for a minute. In fact, let me just wrap this for one moment. These hedges were done about a year and a half ago. And you can see that they're still thriving and doing well. We're being very careful of these hedges where, again, that they were pruned well, they did a great job, and they're thriving. So you're going to cost, right now, from my understanding, that's about probably $2,500, $2,600. So if you times that, times... Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, maybe not every year. We may get lucky, depending on what the years are. We might get lucky that you wouldn't have to do it every year. It would be every other year.
Okay.
But I would say it would be that much time frame. And I'm going to turn it to Brett for a minute, if you don't mind. Brett.
Yes.
What would be the cost going forward once the stone wall was done? Is there additional cost that we would have to do?
No, actually, that's the great news is the stonework, the stone walls are it's a one and done situation. The only additional costs that could happen in the future would be a collision by auto, which you would like to think there'd be insurance involved. The only other problem could be the falling of a tree, that kind of thing, which is a rare event, but it could happen. Beyond that, it's going to be on a very solid crushed stone footing, which is going to act as a giant dry well under the wall. So that's going to dramatically reduce any movement from the earth with frost and that kind of thing. It's a long-term solution.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Those hedges that are there, what is the age of those hedges? Do we know?
What are the what? Sorry?
Age? How
I
old
think
are those
they're
hedges?
about the same because I reached out to Bill Tyler and he gave me a picture in the 1930s of he only had one of the North Cemetery, and they were about this tall in the 1930s. In fact, it was interesting to see, you know, you still had some of the fields around in the area that had the trees there, so everything looked different. But those hedges were about this tall, so we figured that they were probably put in around the same time. The South Cemetery, where it's a teeny bit older, might be a little bit longer than that.
Did any of the arborists that you spoke with give what the life expectancy of that plant is, even under proper care?
Again, if they're taken care of, I don't want to say correctly, but if they're the maintaining of it is done better, and that's what, again, not to speak ill, and that's not what I'm trying to do, but for 20 years that these weren't taken care of, maybe they would have lasted through this. I don't know. These have been able to survive and flourish, so you would hope, again, where we had a professional arborist and professional company come in to take care of these, they were able to bring them back and make them look nice.
Okay. My last question is, have you gone out to the people, I mean, I assume you have some kind of database of, A, people whose families have members interred there, or to the general public about what the sentiment is? It's a very different look. They're both New England, but they're a very different look, and I'm interested to hear if you kind of poll the public about what they feel, because these kind of changes, I can tell you, cause very strong reactions in both directions.
Right, right. I think it's, like I said, to be honest with you, the answer is no. There are some people that I would see in the cemetery, and we might have a discussion about it, and they'd say, oh, that's, you know, once you told them the expenses, the cost associated, even though we know the cost is up front with a stone wall, but once it's done, it's going to make it easier for the cemetery to take care of, because you're not going to have that maintenance of taking care of those particular trees.
Right. I will point out one thing, well, two things I'll point out. First of all, I have to, for full disclosure, Brett is a very good friend of mine, so that's number one. But that being said, if we look at the cost of putting in the hedges, even if we add the let's just say $2,000 a year, it's going to take 100 years to make up the $200,000 difference between the hedges and the high end of the walls. So in the end, they come out similarly. So it really just a matter of aesthetics and what people can do. You know, so from one standpoint. And the second thing is the board has already received a letter to all of us in opposition to this from a resident. So, okay.
Right. But can I just say a but there?
Sure.
Is, with that being said, I think if you had to have a well drilled, if you had to possibly pipe in, if that's even possible, to go onto the street to get the water to come in from there, you're looking at even more costs. So does it all come in under the same? Meaning, is the wall and the hedges the same? Is it not? And the sad part is, obviously, the season that we've had today, or this year, we wouldn't need much water at all, of course.
Right.
But we can't guarantee that. That's the problem.
Well, in the first 3 years, as you said,
Right,
obviously,
are
those are the
important.
most critical.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. No more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Nizzle, any questions?
Yeah, so
Or
I have a
comment?
few. So sorry if I'm missing this somewhere, but what's the total amount for this request?
350,000.
350.
Yeah, I think it's in, yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm just missing it, my bad.
No, that's okay.
All right. So I don't really have a green thumb, so just pardon my ignorance in advance. So these are the same types of hedges, right? In the north and south cemetery? Or are those
Right,
the
these are
different-
abrevieties.
Right.
And then what they would want to put in is a hemlock.
Yeah.
And I think the hemlock and the, I don't have a green thumb either, but it's my understanding they're pretty similar. And that's why, and maybe the other ones are a little more hardy, I don't know. Do you remember, Dave, was there anything that he said, hemlock versus abrevieties?
The abrevieties that was there before was a type that the...
Would you mind just coming closer to the
Yeah,
microphone?
come to the,
was the type where the trunks would bend when the wind and the snow get on it. The hemlocks are going to be one trunk that goes straight up, like a Christmas tree trunk, okay? It goes straight up, and when the wind and the snow hits it, it won't bend over. So over a period of years, the other ones bent over so much, and no one took care of it to trim it back to normal.
right, if the trimming had kept going, they may not have looked the way they did. They may not have curved, and as you can kind of see, let me pull that picture back up. Dave, if I can have that one, please. You can see definitely in this one how they, literally, when these were full, but how they've gone this direction. And then you'll have some that will go the other direction too.
So is there just like a lot of maintenance that wasn't being done on those hedges, but was being done in the south cemetery? I'm just trying to understand why there's like such a big difference.
I think what happened, 2 years ago, I believe, we started with the South Cemetery to see how they would bounce back, because they hadn't been touched either. So we started with those hedges. Lakeview again was called in. They did their pieces, and that's why I'm saying the difference is because they were trimmed back, they were pruned, whatever the terminology is, and they did a nice job to them. I can't tell you what happened here. All I can tell you is we came in one day, and that's basically what we had.
Okay. So along this stretch of hedges, it's 1,000 feet. Is that right?
Yes, there
That's what I
was,
see here. Okay.
yeah, I think,
So
yes.
are those just like the ones that are in the worst condition out of all?
Oh,
of
no,
them?
we've lost a whole section. I would say the section would probably be as long as where you guys are there, at least, and maybe longer, that they literally cut them down.
Okay.
So there's none. So this is a problem that I see in the future a little bit right now, is because anybody can go in that cemetery now from the road. Not to say you couldn't go in through the trees, but you wouldn't probably do that. They've got the stumps that are up, so a car would probably bottom out if they went through there, but that is an issue. And unfortunately, we don't have a picture of that where that shows that long area that doesn't have any in there. The other thing, the possibility, and again, this is only a possibility, is that a lot of pesticides and herbicides was used on these trees. I don't know. I would literally, that is a question to the arborist to say, over long term, what does that do? Does that do anything that causes this damage too?
So the new hedges that you want to put in, am I correct that they have a higher maintenance need than the ones that?
I don't know if it's a higher maintenance. I think it's maintenance. If you don't maintain them, they're going to grow wild. And like I said, they just were never done. For whatever reason, and I don't know the reasons. I don't know. Heather, do you know anything why that wasn't, anything with the DPW or anything why that wasn't done? Do you have any?
Bill Bernard's on this call, so he can,
see
he
that.
may be able to answer that.
Okay. I know we didn't have the money. Oops. Sorry.
Yep, Bill here.
Yeah,
Well, I wasn't working for the town at the time for the last 20 years, but I can imagine it just never made it to the top of the priority list of work that needed to be done in the cemetery. I can't really offer a good explanation, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Bill.
You know, sometimes maintenance gets deferred. It happens. You know, we have budget cuts. Things have to fall off.
Right.
You know, it's just part of the cycle.
Mr. Chair, I would venture a guess, and a pretty good one at that is probably just lack of resources, both manpower resources and, more importantly, probably money resources.
I would hate to speculate on anything without doing
Yeah,
further research into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest piece is, I think if you have a true arborist that is a professional that does this type of work, that's who you want to continue to have it flourish like what we have right now.
I don't disagree.
Well, I was really asking because, so we want to add a well, so it seems like they have just like a higher requirement for watering. So I was wondering if there was some issue with getting that well installed and everything that is needed to have it running, if the hedges there would be an issue with the hedges.
I have a very green thumb, so I think I can probably answer your question.
Sure.
Good.
I think what Nancy's referring to is when you first plant like a shrub or a tree, it needs to take root. And that takes several years to happen. So there's a high watering requirement over those first 3 years. And that's really what Nancy's referring to. Once you get beyond that, nature kind of takes its course. The roots are well established, so they can kind of go with the ebb and flow. And so I think in the presentation, as her preferred option, what she's really asking for is a stone wall. But she's presenting us data about what the challenges will be with hedges. I think the other part is we have to think back of we know that we're in this era of climate change. And I think thinking back of 1930s or earlier, what did this area look like? What was the weather like? Was it an impervious, hot tar surface right next to them? Like, there's a lot of factors that have likely changed, and over time, it's probably impacted the life cycle of the hedges.
Okay. Just trying to get a better
No,
understanding
thank
of it all.
Your questions are all great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have any more. Thank you.
I'm sorry for jumping in. I just
No, I'm glad you
do a lot
did,
of
because I don't
plantings.
have a green thumb, so it's best that I don't answer some.
Mr. Franco?
Yes, thank you. I don't know if the Cemetery Commission really did its homework and dug into how to appeal to the sensibilities of each of the board members, but every time I heard New England rustic field stone wall, there was a massive surge of endorphins.
Were they good endorphins or were they bad endorphins?
Yes. Good. So, the personal reactions to this aside, So, yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit, but just for clarity's sake, in comparing South Cemetery to North Cemetery and the situations there, does the South Cemetery currently have access to water those?
No, that I would say not. We're still, I would say we're about equal in that. I don't know, to be honest with you, and Heather, again, I keep looking to you because I'm not sure if you can answer this, is, what is from the South Cemetery to the North Cemetery? I know we have 3 wells at the North Cemetery, and I know that they can't handle, if it's a year, like it's this year, forget it, we're fine. But any other year when we're, like last year, one of the wells will go dry. The other well will start, you can tell when it starts to go down. So I'm not sure about the South Cemetery on that, so my apologies, I don't know the answer to that.
And I don't want that answer tonight.
Okay, but can we safely say that access to water
is probably
was not
the same
a factor in keeping those in the condition that they're in because they haven't been being watered? Is that
right? Correct.
Okay, that's really what
right.
I'm getting at.
It's only because exactly what Michael had said, Mr. Jeffries, is that again, when they're growing, they've got to have that water, and it's my understanding again from Mr. Anderson that you need at least 3 years worth of water to make it work.
And those are very well established, so that
Yep.
they wouldn't need that. Okay, so just playing devil's advocate here, trying to get fully informed is a lot. It's no small amount of money, of course.
Of course.
Any of these routes is no small amount of money. As far as ARPA, I mean, there's nowhere near enough left in ARPA to do this, I know what you're suggesting, using stabilization fund money. I think you may be assuming some contingencies too, like money comes back and that we suddenly have more ARPA funds. But let me just to be fully informed, and so that the public and the board is fully informed. Is there any chance, realistic chance, that, and I think I may have read in the material, no, but that these might come back in 2 to 3 years?
That's why we pulled in the arborists. And we had, how many ones did you have over? 2, 3? All right. We had 3 different ones because we wanted to know their opinion.
Yeah.
They're not coming back.
They think not, okay.
I mean, we thought at first, could we put in other trees in with them? And will they then kind of produce themselves and stuff? And he said, that's when I said about putting good money with bad, basically. So the answer to that is no, they won't come back.
All right. We're talking 950 lineal feet roughly of hedge. Mm-hmm. Of that 950 feet, is there, I mean, some is obviously in worse condition than others. Is there some substantial portion that could survive and thrive?
I don't think so because of the way they look, because they're so cut up now. No, they really do look, I wish I had more pictures to show you, but they really do look bad. You've got some that don't have any, so you've got the whole section that there's nothing there. You've got these section, they might come in a little full or a little bit in the middle, and then they'll spread out again, and then they'll be worse. I mean, we may have some on our phones. If you'd like to see them from our phones, we have pictures. But it's pretty bad. Okay. It's pretty bad.
I did take a recent drive through there. I just didn't.
Yeah, no, I wish you would.
Some of these questions only occurred to me now, so I don't
Absolutely.
remember exactly what it looked like with that lens.
Right.
Looking at it through that lens. All right. I mean, the way I'm looking at this right now is that we're taking data and collecting information and mulling all this over. So
right, of course.
I think the questions that have already been asked and my questions and whatever Mr. Jeffries has are probably going to fill it out for me.
All right. Well, I don't have too many questions, but I want to thank you, Nancy, for the presentation. I think this is an excellent presentation. And, you know, I'll tell you, when I was I think everyone knows that I went to the schools here. And so when I was in high school, middle school, we used to do, runs in this area. When I was in track and cross country, we used to run by this area. And, I'll tell you, they weren't looking great 20 years ago. They were looking pretty bad. Yeah. And I know that there was an effort that was made maybe 15 or so years where they were really growing into kind of the road area. Like they were just so overhanging. I mean, not quite, but they were just so close to the road that there was a cutback. And I don't know if that was 15 years ago or 20 years ago when that happened. You know, as a resident in Lunenburg, my opinion is I think that cemeteries are final resting places. I think so many people give so much to make a community what it is. And as a kid, I have a lot of memories in North Cemetery and in South Cemetery because I live kind of between Mass Ave and Arbor Street. And so if I come through the woods, where I land up at is basically almost at the cemetery. And there's all those fields which are right near this. So I'm very familiar with this area. I think South Cemetery, the arborvitaes there really look great. I think it adds a lot to the cemetery, and I know exactly where this is because I remember sitting on these walls as a kid with my nephew and cousins and friends, and it's just a lot of good memories that I personally have because as a kid, 20-something, almost 30 years ago, there's not many places to hang out at. So when you're rollerblading and biking, you end up at the cemetery because there's no cars, no traffic, and ends up being a good time. But I also, really enjoyed, looking at the gravestones and seeing like the history and learning a lot, like seeing certain last names and being like, oh, I have kids in my, class that are, same family. And so I think that what you're providing and what you're proposing tonight really does honor that kind of New England history that we really try to maintain here. I think this is a really appropriate presentation. I know this cost is high, but I think that part of the purpose of ARPA and something I've heard from all members is, we really want to make sure we're having a lasting impact. And I don't know anything that we've had so far that's going to be as lasting as what you are recommending or proposing to us today. I think for you, though, next steps. Certainly, as Mr. Alonso made reference to, I think tonight is the real presentation. A lot of people watch our meetings. A lot of people are going to become informed. I expect that following tonight, you're going to get some communications from residents who are in support of this or who are adamantly opposed to it. Right. Some may say, why don't we just fundraise this and we can do it that way? Why take it from ARPA? How would this fare in a capital planning process? I don't know. But I think that this presentation, as you've put forward this proposal, I think it's a good one. And I think that, I would encourage you and Dave over the next couple months to really get the word out, get the feelers out, see what the feedback is, see if there's, any kind of adjustments that need to be made to the proposal. And we have a separate process, as clearly you're aware of, in which we may be, pursuing, the use of stabilization funds to pay for some things that we previously committed ARPA funds for, and that in that event that those funds may become available, at which point we could consider this project. Right now, I think we only have $58,000 remaining, so certainly there's not much that we can consider, as far as committing funds to this. But I do think that there's a public outreach aspect that's going to be next for you, in which you can kind of fine-tune any of these designs, like I said, get that feedback. And then, I think we can have a robust conversation, depending on how that, vote goes, and if, that all goes well, I think we can have a robust conversation, toward the end of the fall or beginning of the winter.
Okay. I think the one thing, again, I just want to leave us with is this section here, this is where the new section will be opened up with new grave sites going in. So the walls, again, she'll tie in nicely with what Mr. Ramsden will do for us, and will tie the whole place into a whole. And it's my privilege and my honor, because of having veterans, myself, my family members, and so on and so forth, my husband. It's an honor to make this, if we can make this happen. I think, again, this will be beautiful and will be very well respected to people coming in and looking at her.
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple other questions that came up as I'm thinking. So, you mentioned that neither cemetery has water, and I have very limited exposure to cemeteries. I don't regularly visit cemeteries, so I'm just going to ask this. The ones that I have been to have had some area where family members, spouses, children, siblings, whatever, can go and, like, if they bring a plant, they can get water and put it in. So the question becomes, regardless of the stone wall versus hedge question, is it something that the Cemetery Commission would be looking for, that they would feel would be beneficial to have water nearby in any event?
Okay, so let me back up for 1 second, because I think one thing you don't have correct, Tom, and maybe that's my fault, is there's water there today. There's 3 different, I call them pump houses. The problem is once they're used, or once we're not having the weather that we are having now, they dry up. One of them definitely dries up. that may be able to be fixed because part of that may be coming from the road and where the pipe goes in and so on and so forth. There's sand getting in there that is causing that one to have difficulties. The other two, you can still get water from it. It just can't do what it can do with the new hedges that would be put in. That's what it can't do. We have water today, and I believe at the South Cemetery it's probably the similar. I'm not sure how many pump houses they have. Sometimes people bring jugs of water in with them. Sometimes they know where to go get the water inside the North Cemetery.
Fair
Is
enough.
that
Yep,
better?
Yep.
Okay.
And lastly, I know, just so people, there's probably a lot of reasons why the hedges in one area are different than other. There's soil types, there's rain, there's runoff, there's a whole host of reasons. But I know that several years ago there was actually a very serious act of vandalism on the hedges at North Cemetery,
Yes.
correct? Do you happen to know if those pictures that we're seeing, were those areas that were vandalized?
So, I'm just trying to think where, so where this is across from the building, where the hedges were that were taken out, I know where you're speaking of, is further down this row here.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we don't have a picture of that. I will give you a picture that Dave, how do you?
No, just say your password out loud, Dave.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Show that picture again, sorry. So it was more down to where the niche wall is. So when you were whizzing by on your bike,
Yeah.
if you look a little to the right there, that's where
Okay.
that's where part of it was. I'm just going to show you this. Dave has this picture which shows where the hedges were all taken down. So that whole area has no hedges in it at all, which is concerning, like I said, only because, you know, the stumps are there and someone is going to bottom out if they try to go flying in there.
I saw that.
Yeah, I did. You've seen this, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, let me reach over. Let me stand up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, do we have any remaining questions or comments? You know, one thing that, you know, when I served on the planning board, you know, one of the things that I would say to, and I wasn't on the planning board very long, but one of the things that I would say to the applicants that came before us is, whenever you're planning anything, even though everyone generally has a concern about things that happen in the town, the people who are the most concerned are the abutters. And it's always good when you're having any kind of plan to reach out to those people who abut the property, who live near it, and get their endorsement or support. That goes a really long way, and I think it would be helpful. I know that there's luckily, I wouldn't say luckily, but you know, there aren't many people who live directly across from the cemetery, but there are people on Highland, you know, who will drive by, and I think that death is part of life, and I think sometimes we get in this habit of separating it from us. What I personally like about this proposal is that it's more visible from the road, and you know, you will be able to see the cemetery a little better, and then also with the wildlife, I think it becomes a better pass through for some of the wildlife. You know, I'm sure someone else is going to say, well, they need to be blocked ups and downs, but I really think that what you guys have pulled together tonight is a great proposal, and like I said, it's just the work now is to reach out to the neighbors, reach out to other people, members of the public, and
Okay,
get
we will do
feedback.
that. We will gladly, Dave and I will gladly do that. Take that forward.
Are there any other questions or comments from any members of the board, including Selectman Imke tonight?
I have one final comment. I would hearken anybody who is going to present anything to the Board of Selectmen that this is a great example of how to present something. I think it's well presented. It's very clear in what they're asking with the right documentation, right presentation, and we have had others, but they are few. So it's nice to see one that's so well presented. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It was my honor, and it was a lot of fun putting all of this together. So I thank you again, and thank to each of you for listening and taking this seriously. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, to the town manager. Any, Nancy, before we switch, if you want to take a moment just to adjourn your meeting.
motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to turn to interviews, appointments, reappointments, and resignations.
There are none.
Okay. And to what I'm told is the best part of our meetings, the town manager's report. And we can pause for a moment. There's going to be a little bit of commotion. So. For those at home, we're just pausing for a moment. We know that there's a little bit of commotion in the room, so we're just pausing while there's a little bit of cleanup activity here. Excellent. Thank you, Heather, for pulling together the committee assignments early on in our meeting. So we'll just give it another second here, and then we'll keep going here. All right, to the town manager for the town manager report.
Okay. I'll start with the board, committee, and commission vacancies. Following is a list of vacancies. One vacancy on the Architectural Preservation District Commission. One vacancy until the next annual town election for the Board of Assessors, which that is the meeting that is for this Thursday for that one vacancy. One vacancy until the next annual town election for the Cemetery Commission. Two vacancies on the Finance Committee. One regular member and one associate vacancy for the Green Communities Committee. One member at large vacancy for the Open Space Committee, one vacancy until the next annual town election for the Park Commission, and one vacancy on the Personnel Committee. Anyone interested in any of these openings can fill out a volunteer application that is found on our town website, complete it and return it to the Select Board's office. And if you have any questions on the roles and responsibilities for these positions, you can contact the office at 978-582-4130. Extension 144. For employment opportunities with the town, the following is a list of current openings. The assistant to the sewer business manager is 19 hours a week. The assistant town accountant is 32 hours a week. Assistant meal site manager is 19 and a half hours a week. Conservation administrator, which is 36 hours a week. Finance director, which is 40 hours a week. Heavy equipment operator, 40 hours a week. Principal assessor, 40 hours a week, 2 seasonal cemetery laborers, and 1 videographer position for 2 to 10 hours on average. More information on each of these positions can be found on the town website under job opportunities, where you can find how to apply.
If I can just ask, Madam Town Manager, but I think I need to start saying probably Madam more often. For the positions of conservation administrator, finance director, and principal assessor, do you think you're close to a hire on any of those roles in the next couple of weeks?
No.
Okay.
And that's all based on what we're receiving for applications. Yeah. And that's why I reported on some of those openings last week's meeting on the status.
You know, I've seen these posted on like so many different websites, from Indeed to the state website. I mean, it's like, this is everywhere. And so it's really sad that, are you getting any kind of feedback, or is it on, you know, any I know sometimes people will email very rarely and say, hey, I like this job, but I don't like this. Are you getting any feedback on anything?
I think it's just generally those positions are really difficult to fill right now.
Yeah.
And we're not alone
Yeah.
in this struggle to fill these types of positions. There's less and less people going into this profession. There's more people retiring from this profession, and not enough people funneling into it. So that's why I think it's important to start that process with the state and really advocate for, a pathway for people to go into this profession and how we can attract more.
I will continue certainly to do that. What I saw just for the public comment is what I saw when I was looking this up was that I think there were 8 or 9 other principal assessor jobs open in the state.
Mm-hmm.
I saw several finance director positions open within like a 35-mile radius, including some positions, I think Concord or Lincoln, I think it's Concord that's posting at like $180,000 a year. And it's like, how can we compete with that?
Right.
Yeah, you can't. And then conservation administrator, I also saw several roles open for that. So it seems as though, we're in the same boat as others. I know it's hard on staff right now to get through this time period. And, I know it's hard. So I just want to thank you and your team and everyone that's working for us and with us. I know when we count these hours up, 40, 40, 40, 3 roles already, you know what I mean? And it's not hard to see how we're short, 200 plus hours. And it's a lot of work on everybody else.
Yep. It's the same message I gave in July about staffing. I can't manufacture people. There's just not the applicant pool that there used to be when we were advertising for openings. And we're trying to support our staff as much as possible and bringing in consultants to help with outsourcing and helping with the roles in a limited way, filling interim positions, 10 hours a week for our conservation administrator, just to anything that we can get is more than nothing.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It dawns on me that maybe one thing we can attempt to try to do something is, we have the upcoming MMA meeting, the annual meeting in January, and I'm wondering if we should write a letter, and maybe through the town manager, through her association with the Mass Association of Town Managers and Town Administrators, that we ask them to put a presentation together. I'd love to know from the state and from the rest of the state municipalities as well as state government, like what steps are they doing to address this? I mean, again, we are obligated in many regards with some of these positions about what they need to do and what the state regulation is. And to the town manager's point that we can't manufacture people, I'd love to know what they're doing to encourage people to get into this field. Because it's not just on the towns and cities. I mean, and there has to be some relief from this, because eventually you can't cripple a town by not giving them final valuations because you can't get people to do the job.
Yep.
So.
And it's a lack of, something I know I've said this to Senator Cronin, Representative Kuchmarek, and also Representative Scarsdale, is, and this is going back a couple of years, is that we need pathways. What are the pathways? And that's what you're speaking of. What are the pathways to get into these jobs? And, if you're the person, most people in Massachusetts live in a city. And, if you grow up in Worcester or Boston or Springfield or Holyoke, do you even know what a lot of these jobs are? Mm-hmm. Probably not. And so how do you tap the population and get them excited and interested in pursuing these things? Like, are there any, what are the degrees coming out of college that there's no jobs for? And is there a way to kind of reorient this in another way? Is there a way to work with our state colleges and get programs up for conservation agents or, some of these critical roles? And that's what I've been urging the state our delegation to do. And I think that we do have a meeting coming up next week, and it's a regional meeting with Representative Scarsdale, and I will definitely bring this up at that meeting, because it seems as if, we're in this region being really impacted by this.
But I think the state level is a great thing, but I think the MMA too, we should suggest that they have a seminar for one of their programs in municipal hiring and attracting people to municipal occupations, because I just don't think people are going into it. And, I'm sure there's lots of reasons. I'd like to know what they are instead of guessing what they are, but it would be helpful to have other people discuss it and say, okay, how did they try to resolve it? Beside raising pay. At some point you could raise everybody's pay and probably attract somebody, but then you never can go back, and it really is that commensurate with the job itself. So, it's a very delicate balance. I'm not against paying people fair salaries, but we can't just pay people because it's a competitive market, because it's never going to go away that way. We can't match Concord's $180,000. It's just not going to happen.
I did write an email to our delegation last week to advocate that they address this at the state level. And so I also wanted to bring to their attention that through one of my professional associations, which is the Small Town Administrators of Managers, that the governor's office has sought out comments from that association on things that we would like to discuss. And so that's going to be one of my topics that I'll be addressing in my letter to them. Excellent. So it is, something that hopefully will get more traction, and I think it will be a common theme among and be supported by a number of communities to have the state step in and help with this. Like I said in my July message, there is a program for accounting, but there's nothing for assessing at the college level. So it would be good to have something similar to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Update on the September 11th flash floods storm event and the MEMA situational awareness update on upcoming rain. Although it is estimated we received over 7 inches of rain from last night's storm event, the damage in town is of no comparison to the devastation in our neighboring city of Leominster. Senator Cronin's office reached out if we had any initial damage assessment that they could include to request state relief funding, as they were doing that for the city of Leominster in their request. DPW Director Bill Bernard put together an estimate of approximately $24,000, and this was forwarded to Senator Cronin's office at the end of today. Representative Kushmerek also reached out to see if we needed any assistance, as did our North Central Chamber of Commerce. And I have to say, right before the meeting, also Representative Scarsdale did as well. Today, I shared a post from North Central Chamber of Commerce, as they have created a dedicated email hotline for businesses affected by the flood event to contact them for assistance. That email is help@northcentralmass.com. I would like to thank our public safety staff, including our fire department that responded with the engine, ladder truck, dive truck, and boat to assist Leominster. The engine and ladder truck responded to calls in the city and assisted with evacuations on Exchange Street. The dive truck and boat assisted with evacuations at the Meadowbrook Trailer Park. Also, thank you to the DPW crew who were out until midnight last night, closing certain roads that had flooding issues and clearing out drains until they were passable. With the expected additional rainfall tomorrow and Hurricane Lee effects over the weekend, MEMA issued a situational awareness update, and I'll quote them. The National Weather Service, in conjunction with MEMA agency meteorologists, are predicting another round of showers and thunderstorms on Wednesday. High humidity, coupled with a slow-moving cold front, will run the risk for heavy bouts of rainfall, mainly between 12 p.m. and 10 p.m. Rainfall rates of near 1 inch per hour may occur across portions of western and central Massachusetts Wednesday afternoon and evening. While these showers and rain and thunderstorms are expected to be more progressive than they were on Monday, any storm that produces 1 inch per hour rain rates, especially over a previously hard-hit area, is likely to cause additional instances of flash flooding. Drier weather is expected to return Thursday afternoon and into Friday. And MEMA is actively monitoring Hurricane Lee through this week as it makes its way up the East Coast. Daily coordination calls with the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, and MEMA Command and general staff are underway. Future information on pre-event planning actions, activation, coordination calls, and response posture will be updated in the coming days. So hopefully none of that comes to fruition, and Leominster gets on the path to recovery. An update on 925 Mass Ave, which is one of my goals for continued goals for this year. The EPA has approved funding for additional work to be done at 925 Mass Ave. That would include soil boring, soil samples, monitoring well installation, groundwater sampling, removal of the hydraulic lift in the building, closure of the floor drain, and removal of the floor drain holding tank. Due to concentrations of VPH in the underground storage tank excavation groundwater samples, new groundwater monitoring wells in locations where each underground storage tank existed would be done. Soil samples will be collected from each soil boring to provide additional site data, and the work would also include collecting groundwater samples and updated groundwater elevation data. Since environmental conditions beneath the building are current data gap, the work will include removal of the hydraulic lift located inside the building to evaluate conditions beneath the building and evaluate the condition of the hydraulic lift to determine if the hydraulic lift may be contributing to the concentrations of PCBs detected in the previous soil samples. Once the lift is removed, a soil sample will be collected from the hydraulic lift pit for analysis of VPH, EPH, MCP metals, and PCBs. Additionally, the work will include closing the 2 existing floor drains located inside the building and removing the floor drain holding tank located south of the building. To evaluate soil conditions around and beneath the holding tank, the contractor will collect 1 composite soil sample for analysis of VPH, EPH, and MCP metals.
And if I may ask, can you just remind me on, my understanding is we haven't taken possession of the property yet, right?
Yes, we have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, okay, that was the lack of confusion. All right, okay.
Yeah.
So then once this is all said and done, it's for us to decide the future disposition of.
That's part of the real estate technical assistance grant I applied for. So that would be, doing conceptual development plans, market analysis, and developing the bid documents to sell the property.
Okay, and I think I'm remembering, it was the last winter that we took possession of the foreclosure process?
It was 2021 we started the process.
Yeah, but as far as when we finished it?
2020, I have to look at the dates,
Okay.
2022. There's a 1-year redemption period
Yeah.
after foreclosure, and that passed without any action.
All right, and then just as a reminder to the public, all this is being funded right now through an EPA or DEP grant?
EPA.
Okay. All right.
Yep, that's very beginning, the EPA approved funding for additional work.
All right, thank you.
Update on infrastructure, facilities, and IT. The LED streetlight project, Pine Ridge Technologies began the LED streetlight conversion project on September 5th and ran into issues with wiring on a majority of the streetlights they have attempted to convert. We contacted Unitil and are coordinating a meeting between their electric operations manager and the vendor tomorrow to review what is being documented in the field by the contractor. In the meantime, our contractor will proceed with the conversion and will address any wiring issues as they are encountered at each site.
And the bottom line here is cost.
Yes.
You'd think a utility company would properly install lights as per the code.
I think that's the purpose of the meeting between their electric operations manager and our vendor to discuss what they're encountering in the field and wiring code.
Okay.
Update on the Senior Center ADA patio project. That project is expected to be complete by the end of this month, barring any issues. This rain does not help the situation. The ribbon cutting ceremony will be October 11th at noon. TC Passios roof, There was yet again another leak at the TC Passios building that occurred over the weekend. After speaking with the facilities director and discussing everything that has been done to try to find where the leaks are originating, the patches that have been done, and that the roof is over its life expectancy, he's going to seek quotes to repair that roof in phases. A warrant article has been submitted for the special town meeting as a placeholder. And that is an agenda topic later on. The new website, the question that was raised about accessing the town website on an iPad and having to double tap on the feature. So our current website under QSend, they would have to redesign, basically redo that whole feature and rebuild it. And there would be a cost associated with that. So we will not be doing that since we'll have a new website in about a month. But the new website will, you'll be able to access it normally.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Third quarter preliminary tax bills for fiscal '24. The letter the board authorized the chair to sign to request authority to issue third quarter preliminary tax bills for fiscal '24 was sent to the Bureau Chief of Local Assessment once we received the signed version from Chairman Jeffries. I'm awaiting a response.
If I can pause there. I signed this last week. It was sent to me via DocuSign. I signed it last week.
Okay.
Okay.
I received it Monday.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe it was on a Friday.
You said you're waiting for me to sign it.
No, I'm awaiting a response from Bureau of Local Assessment. I sent it after I received it. Yeah.
maybe I got that confused. Okay.
Once we received the sign. Yeah.
It's this receive.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm like, whoa! I signed that.
Once we received. Sorry, there should be a D.
Yeah. Okay.
You're all set.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I did receive confirmation from our BLA field advisor that the third quarter preliminary tax installment cannot be more than the amount of the first quarter preliminary tax installment, and that's per IGR 23-1. This year, a pro forma recap sheet, which does not contain valuation information, will need to be done to issue a third quarter preliminary tax bill, and actual tax bills cannot be issued for the third quarter. Once we complete the certification process at the end of January, beginning of February, a tax classification hearing can be held and a fourth quarter actual tax bill issued, and a normal tax recap sheet submitted to DOR.
Okay.
Clearly, I would just, if I may, Mr. Chair, I mean, as we've said, we should remind people of the differences of the tax bills this year and keep reminding people so no one is caught unawares about how this is going to work, because it's going to be very different than in past years.
And it's going to seem like a much larger increase in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Because usually that's spread out over 2 quarters.
Right.
So
Right.
we'll try to do projections as we're working with our vendor Vision on what a possible bill might look like.
And as I spoke with the town manager about another subject, and this came up today, as I said, when Vision, we have to mail the mailings within a month of the due date. So we're not going to make February 1st, so it's going to be May 1st. But we should allow as much time as possible for people to look at the numbers and try to, make sure they are comfortable with the money and save the money for that payment. So whatever we can do to get them out sooner than later is going to be important for people to prepare.
Yes.
Is the Board of Assessors, are we aware if the Board of Assessors is providing, I'm asking this to anyone, if they're going to be sending a letter to residents notifying them that this is happening? Would that come from, our office, your office? Other than our meetings, is there a way to inform the public of this, like in a letter?
We can prepare something that goes along with that third quarter estimated. And I believe in the IGR on this, there's a sample tax.
And if we need to, I would recommend a joint letter between the two boards, just so people are aware. I mean, if we can put it in the bill, good. If we can do something publicly and put it on the website, even better. So there's any way we can hit people, because the last thing I want is on April 15th, 2 weeks before they're due, to have people say, I never heard this is new to me, and all that.
Okay. Thank you.
And lastly, a budget update for health insurance for fiscal '25 and future years. The assistant town manager, HR director, the payroll benefits coordinator, our health insurance broker, and I met with our health insurance account representative last week for our annual review. We were advised that due to the state of the healthcare industry and medical trends, we should budget 10% for active plans for fiscal '25 and expect 8 to 10% increases in health insurance rates over the next 5 years. This was explained as that it's due to low employment in the medical fields and hospitals renegotiating their contracts, and therefore insurance rates are trending high. Our retiree renewal for calendar year 24 is estimated to be a 6% increase.
So just for clarity, in the sentence that says we should budget 10% for active plans for FY25 and expect 8 to 10% increases in health insurance rates over the next 5 years, I'm assuming that means annually for the next 5 years.
Correct.
Okay, not 8 to 10% over 5 years, but.
Correct. Each
Okay.
year.
Each
we should
year.
budget.
Yeah,
we should
that's what I thought.
expect
I just want to
8
be sure.
10%.
Yeah, we're back to old days now.
Yep, and with a budget that only grows by 2.5%.
Right.
Right.
We got a dream sequence of years in there, but when I started on the finance committee, we were looking annually at 8 to 12% every year. And like you said, Mr. Chair, when you only can raise the budget, when it's a huge number to begin with, and you only can raise, rates 2%, 2.5% plus whatever the new growth is, you wind up playing a sliding game, going the other direction.
All right. Thank you. I want to turn to Selectman Imke if you have any questions to the town manager related to the town manager's report.
No, thank you.
All right, any in the room?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, old business. So tonight, we're going to be reviewing some special town meeting warrant articles. So if we can turn to our Google Drive and our draft articles. So last week we had 4 up here. And then we have, I think we had everything A through D last week, and then now we have E through H. Do you want me to present these, Heather, or would you like to? Madam Town Manager, would you like to?
I can, if you want. We received one from the school department, E, to see if the town will vote to transfer $232,800 from the fiscal '23 capital plan approved at the May 7th, 2022 annual town meeting to the Lunenburg School District for the purpose of installing ductless split climate control systems at the Lunenburg Primary School. So this article is essentially due to that project changing in scope. The school committee went to see about a consensus from the capital planning committee, the select board, and the finance committee, whether agreeing to move forward with the funding as it is in the existing capital plan, but it was described as a different type scope of project at the town meeting. And the select board was fine with moving forward. The capital planning committee was fine with moving forward, but the finance had a split vote. So this is to basically do a standalone article with those funds for the revised scope for that project.
I don't recall, now, I am aging, so I don't recall the capital planning thinking about, we heard this, but we didn't hear the dynamics. And the first thing that strikes me is that we're taking capital planning money and giving it to a budget. And my own
Standalone article. It's not in the operating budget. So it's like its own capital article.
Okay, all right, so it's not going into the
No.
school budget, it has to be used for these purposes?
Yes.
Okay, that is my only concern. With that put to bed, then yeah, then I'm fine with it.
The letter F is to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate borrow or transfer from available funds a sum of money for repairs to the TC Passios building. And I'll expand on that. Roof should be insertion of like roof repairs, make it more descriptive of that. So Chris Ruth, Facilities Director, is in the process of getting quotes for that work. So, and depending on the cost, we'll proceed. But I wanted a placeholder article at least to address it if we can. And the next two articles are from the Sewer Commission. They're annual special town meeting articles to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds $1,851.30 into the Sewer Reserve Capacity Stabilization Fund, and to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds $5,340 into the Sewer Infiltration Stabilization Fund. And I am aware of, I spoke with the Land Use Director today, there's 4 articles from the Planning Board that should be submitted by the end of this week.
Okay.
And they discussed those at their meeting last night.
And I would request, Mr. Chair, if this board is in agreement, to put in a placeholder for this special vehicle stabilization fund usage for the vehicles, and we can discuss its merits, but just to make sure it gets on the warrant.
Yeah. I think we had already decided that previously.
I just want to make sure, yeah.
All right, and I know there was on that.
Want me to craft it on the spot to see if the town will vote to transfer from the Special Purpose Stabilization Fund a sum of $986,000 for the purchase of.
You don't have to do it on the fly. We're going to meet on Zoom on Thursday, so if you can have it ready for Thursday just to show us, that would be perfect.
Okay.
And we want to make it clear that those funds are then coming back to ARPA, or does that need to be inferred?
No, that wouldn't be the vote. That would be a vote of this board.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we couldn't rescind the vote until we actually have other
Right.
Yeah, got it.
funding.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question related to that.
Of course.
I seem to recall last week, town manager wanted to look into the impact of moving those funds around. Am I remembering right?
You are. That is correct. And I think that the town manager committed, we had talked previously that we would discuss this at our next meeting.
Okay.
I did capture that correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right. All right. Any questions, comments on the special town meeting warrant articles? Nope. Okay. Current business. So we have a couple things to hopefully get through pretty quick. So first is we had, I wouldn't say we, but what occurred is what's before us tonight is to vote to authorize town council to respond to 15 Cliffview Terrace, appeal to Worcester Superior Court. So 15 Cliffview Terrace is a property located in Hickory Hills, and it is, they received a zoning letter that indicated that their use is not compliant with the accepted zoning. And so what the request is tonight is to authorize town council to respond to their, what happened was the owners of 15 Clearview then said, hey, we don't agree with you on this, and we'd like to appeal this. And so that is where we're at. So we're asking town council to respond to the 15 Cliffview Terrace appeal to Worcester Superior Court. Any discussion, if the vote tonight is in the affirmative, future conversations related to this would not be discussed in the open session. Are there any questions? All right, with that, I move to authorize town council to respond to the 15 Cliffview Terrace appeal to Worcester Superior Court.
Second?
Any additional discussion? This is a roll call vote. Selectman Imke?
Aye.
Mr. Alonso?
Aye.
Mr. Nunziolo?
Aye.
Mr. Franco?
Aye.
And an aye for myself, Michael Ray Jeffries. All right. Next, we have a temporary permanent easement for 895 Flat Hill Road. So this is the LaVille easement, and I don't know if you want to take a moment to the town manager to present this. I know that members have had the opportunity to read through what this is. We discussed it previously.
This is a second easement that where the party did agree to signing a temporary and permanent easement with a small payment for the permanent easement.
Okay. Are there any questions related to this? This is all related to the bridge repair, right?
Yes.
Are there any questions related to this from the board? This is pretty straightforward.
Not related to this, but if we approve this, which I'm assuming we will, how many?
Two more.
Two more left? Okay.
Okay. All right.
I would move that we approve for signing the temporary and permanent easement for 895 Flat Hill Road as presented.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
We have to do a roll
Oh,
call
sorry,
vote.
this is a roll call vote. Thank you, thank you.
Aye.
All right. Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
Selectman Nozzello.
Aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye.
And an aye for myself, Michael Ray Jeffries. All right, so we have a signature page, and I think we have to sign and then title. So chair, and then, yeah, all right. There you go. While that's going down, so what I added to the agenda this evening is discuss review dog hearing bylaw, specifically section 110-1. So this is in our Google Drive this evening. So why this is in is Mr. Alonso identified this and so here's just what it is. So we follow state law when it comes to having a dog hearing. However, we also have our local bylaws which regulate dog control. What occurred is that, I'm not sure, it looks like we enacted this in 2006. It was amended in 1985, 1991, and again in 2006. And there was a recent amendment to the state law related to dog hearings. So specifically in this section 110, which refers to dog control, there's 3 different sections. I think we have 3. The first section is related to just, dog restraint. Section is license and kennel fees. And the third section is dog kennels. For the purpose of conversation tonight, we are not discussing license and kennel fees or dog kennels. We are just discussing the first portion, which is dog restraint. And the primary concern is when we look at the definition in D, so 110-1D, in which we call out the definition of a public nuisance, in which we define a public nuisance. Any dog shall be deemed a public nuisance when attacking persons or domestic animals while such dog is on the property other than that of the dog owner, when destroying property, when on a public school grounds, not under restraint, etc., etc. And the concern is that the use of the phrase nuisance is in conflict with the use of the word nuisance in state law. And so I'm presenting this tonight only as something for us to begin the process of modifying. I do think as a necessary next step, we want to get feedback from the animal control officer on what she would like to see as appropriate wording. But I would like to get a placeholder on this fall's town meeting so we can remedy this as soon as possible. So that way, if there's an event, we don't have any kind of conflict. And the goal, again, is just to modify this language so it's more consistent with state law. So I'm not looking for any kind of decisions tonight. I'm looking for a placeholder tonight, and I would like to ask for the town manager to see if Chief Gamble and Animal Control Officer can take a look at this language and make a recommendation to us in coordination with town council, if the board so agrees.
I do agree.
So, if I remember correctly from last week, there's not only a nuisance, but there's also a dangerous dog designation, right?
Correct.
Would it make sense to add another definition so that's clear in our bylaw what the possible outcomes of a dog hearing are according to state law?
So we have, I think my gut is what this bylaw achieves to do is really it empowers the animal control officer in being able to issue out certain orders, certain fines, enforcing kennels. It's not, the dog hearing process is wholly separate.
Sure.
And I think that the primary concern is that if there's a determination by the animal control officer that uses the word nuisance, that there could potentially be a conflict when it comes to an animal hearing in which they say, well, you've already determined that the dog is a nuisance, so why are we here for something else? And that's the conflict that I'm trying to avoid, is having the bylaw conflict with the process we have to follow that's dictated not by bylaw, but by state law. If that answers your question, Mr. Nuzella.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is basically eliminate from our bylaw the word nuisance and reword this. And we should probably do that by looking at other towns' bylaws, because that's where the problem is. And so when the authority of the animal control officer to call a dog hearing to this body should be worded in such a way that doesn't use dangerous or nuisance at all, and just authorizes that person, if they're in violation of any of the bylaws herein, you know, that authorizes to initiate a hearing before this board. And then we can just follow state law and we'll be fine.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like by nodding of the heads that we're all in agreement with this approach. All right.
That's the new voting system, the nodding of the heads. Yes.
All right. Oh, thank you.
Yep.
As on like title? Okay, so we have that noted, town manager. Okay,
I'll also send it to town council.
thank you. Okay. All right, next, discuss site visit schedule for property of the care and custody of the select board.
Your custody, Mr. Clerk.
I'm just trying to just make sure I word this correctly. One of the things that we started last year was identifying properties that are under the care and custody of the select board, and I think the overall intent that I was trying to encourage was for us to formalize what we are holding some of these properties for future disposition. And again, you know, we have quite a bit of parcels around town. You know, we have the former Woodlands, Woodruff property, center of town, about 111 acres. We have property located in the Whalum area. One parcel is about 61 acres, another one's about 40 acres. And we have other large parcels around town. But I think the intent that I was trying to encourage was for us to do some site walks and try to decide, you know, why we're holding this property. So that way, a future board, you know, may look at some of these properties and say, hey, this is great to become conservation, but what we don't want to do is find ourselves in a position where we have put too much property into forever care, and then, you know, if we assume that we're going to be here for the next 1,000 years or more, and then handcuff future boards and future generations when they don't have enough land for schools, police annexes, fire annexes, and then have to resort to, you know, eminent domain and other stuff like that. So my full intent here is just for us to kind of identify some of these walkthroughs. I don't think that we're going to figure out today or this year the disposition of them all, but I do think it would be helpful for us to kind of identify if there's a disposition intended and if there's properties that we're holding to figure out for the future, and just to kind of get that recorded. So that way, in how this came about was, I think the town was in a really healthy process of open space committee, was going through really looking at parcels that had a lot of appeal to the public. And we were in the process of transferring different parcels to supplement and complement the conservation lands that we have. I think that effort was extremely successful, and I think that the conservation lands now in Lunenburg are certainly a forever feature of our town. What I'm advocating for here is for us to figure out if some of these parcels have an intended use or potential future use, so that way we can just document that, so that way in the future, if there's an open space committee, conservation committee that would like to eyeball some of these, that at least we will have some clearer guidance at that point in time for why we have this property under our care and custody and why it hasn't already been transferred somewhere else. So part of that, in order to get to that point, I think we have to walk the properties. I think we have to look at them. And I think the Woodruff property was an excellent walkthrough last year. And then I also know that the 300th Anniversary Committee is looking in part for sites to do some things, and this may help inform that process as well. So what I wanted to discuss tonight was if the board is still in agreement with us pursuing this, to schedule some walkthroughs of a couple more properties in the Whalum area.
I could be talked into it if, but only if, can we get a listing? I'd love to see a listing, both spreadsheet listing and identification on a map of what the sites are, that at least identify the location and the size of the property. And then we could decide, you know, I don't want to visit every single property we own. Most of them are probably not, I mean, I could tell where they are, but what the possibilities are if it's a tiny parcel. So if we can have that discussion first and then visit, I mean, the Woodruff one was a good walk, and some of the other ones, but, you know, you start getting to smaller parcels, I'm not sure that I would agree with visiting all of them. So if we identify specific ones, yes.
So we do have that, and I just want to get the feel. Are we all in agreement with kind of starting this approach with the advice that Mr. Alonso just noted?
Yes.
I am, yes.
Okay. Selectman Imke?
Yes.
All right. So we do have in our Google Drive somewhere this list, because I think we compiled it already. I think at our next meeting, what I can then do is have that list available for us to talk through, also have a map, so that way we can kind of see where these things are, and then just work through that schedule. All right?
Sure.
All right, see, quick discussion here. All right, approval of minutes from June 20th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the minutes for the meeting of June 20th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, it's going to be a roll call vote. Selectman Imke?
She was not
I abstain.
Okay. Selectman Alonso?
Aye.
Selectman Nuzzello?
Aye.
Am I saying that correctly?
Sometimes. You're still learning. That time, no, you did not say it correctly.
Can you tell me the correct pronunciation?
You had it right the rest of the meeting. Nuzolo.
Nuzzello?
Yeah.
Okay. New.
Unless you feel really Italian, then it's Nuzzolo.
That's true.
Selectman,
The Campari at the end of the table have to stick together.
Selectman Franco?
Franco, please. Aye.
And an aye for myself, Michael Ray. All right. I almost said Franco, too. All right. So, all right, we have some warrants tonight, so we have quite a bit to get through here. All right, we have an additional school committee, payroll in the amount of $3,514.26. We have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $40,779.97. Ooh, payroll's back up again, school's in session. We have a payroll warrant in the amount of $971,248.01. Here we go. And we have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $1,099,483.99. I think that's my first 99 cents. All right, while we're signing all those, do we have any action items this evening for the town manager? All right, hearing none. Any committee reports this evening? Selectman Imke.
Yes, the school committee met last week. I apologize, I left my notes at home, so I'm doing this from memory. There was discussion, of course, this was the first school committee since school is back in session. And so there were comments about how successful the first day of school and transportation went. Thankful for all the planning that went into that. It paid off with the smooth transportation at the start of the school year. And the other topic that I can recall was again around Turkey Hill and a lot of discussion around the need for engineering study with respect to the ADA compliance.
Yep. All right, thank you, Selectman.
And I'll check my notes. If there's something I missed, I'll catch it next week.
All right, thank you, Selectman Imke. And just as a note, thank you as well for attending remotely. I know you're out of the area, so we really appreciate it.
Oh, that's fine. I'd much rather be home, trust me. I'd much rather be sitting there with you.
All right.
Just FinCom is going to meet this Thursday.
Okay.
Well, I think we know what we're going to hear from the planning board. So they met yesterday, and they discussed how we've been playing hot potato with the master plan steering committee. And as a member of the select board, I have to say it was a little embarrassing to listen to. They have a meeting next Monday, and it seems like we're not going to have an official representative there, or?
We will.
You are?
Please
Okay.
advise that Mr. Franco has volunteered his services.
All right, wonderful. All right, so someone will be
That's
there.
for real. I'm not volunteering, though. He really did.
Not without some considerable wailing and gnashing of teeth. But
Well, I'm glad someone will be there.
All right, thank you for that. And sometimes it's I will say it's sometimes when we go before other elected boards, in this town we say that, we think of like all boards are influential, right? But, school committee, this board, and the planning board tend to be very influential about what occurs in the community. And so sometimes it's hard to hear the feedback, but it's the role. And so I thank you for taking it and for communicating it. And we've heard them loud and clear, and we've resolved the concern. So thank you.
And I will thank Mr. Franco for accepting the role.
With much arm twisting.
Yeah, gnashing and mulling and everything aside.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nuzzello. Any other committee reports? Did I say that correctly that time?
No. It's the vowels that you have to get down.
All right, we'll practice.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Franco.
that's going to be the new thing now. So I had council on aging today. The town manager had already mentioned the main specific item that I was going to mention with the projected, it's set, the ribbon cutting for October 11th for the ADA patio project. But more generally, I would like to mention and encourage residents who are adult residents. Now, adult is now defined as 50 years over or over, so no kids, 49 and under. To look into all of the programs and events that are offered and facilitated by the Adult Activity Center. It's a very vibrant, and I'm always impressed every time we go, and the director indicates what's coming up. I'm always impressed at how full the calendar is and the vast array of events and programs that are offered. So I would encourage residents to look at that.
All right.
I don't want to steal your thunder. Isn't the pancake breakfast?
I did I will re-announce
You did it at the beginning.
I did it earlier.
Sorry, Miss.
See, we're so used to it, right?
Circle back, thank you. Yeah. There's a pancake
closing.
breakfast tomorrow at 8 a.m. to 10:30.
Thank you. All right, for committee reports, let's see. I have a regional meeting that is scheduled for next week, and this is with Representative Scarsdale. She's asked at this time if we would only send a representative to this meeting, not additional members of the board, and that in that future get-togethers or future meetings, she's going to ask for more than one representative to come from the select board. So I did advise her that I will plan to be there. I think it's just a kickoff meeting to kind of figure out kind of things. Then going forward, what she's expecting is to expand the audience beyond just a representative.
Does she feel we over-represent ourselves? Is that it?
She specifically, I think that we tend to volunteer a lot, I think, on this board. and I think that's in the region. What I'm told from our representatives and senator is that Lunenburg is the most professional select board, and that we interact quite frequently with them, unlike other boards. So it's to our credit. That's how you got to get stuff done.
Right.
All right. Municipal Building Design Committees will be meeting next Monday. We will be meeting with Mr. Ruth, and I expect the board to discuss the article that he's requesting to be put onto the warrant. The Municipal Building Design Committee did identify that as being part of the phase 1 of the process, and so it is something I expect the Municipal Design Committee to support. Also was received a communication from the Water District requesting to kick off kind of an information seminar And so what they are looking for is representation there. I will work with them to try to get that scheduled, advise the board of when that is occurring. But the intent there is to start the process of getting they were notified that they are receiving ARPA funds, and they want to get that process started to be able to give some public awareness to what PFAS is. And then the cemetery commissioners have been working on many different things, but they will be meeting this Thursday, and I'm expecting that as they are working on relations in all different areas improving, I'm expecting that this Thursday morning at 9 that Mr. Alonso and the town manager and I will attend their meeting and continue the conversation with them. And that's all that I have. All right.
If I could just mention one thing too, I forgot, as long as we're doing committees. I had mentioned last week the idea of an interest in serving as liaison from this board to the 300th anniversary committee. This is not something that actually requires a vote, from what I understand, but some sort of nod or blessing of this board to do that would be.
The ceremonial nodding of the heads
yes,
again?
Yes. If no one else is interested in doing it.
I support that, yes.
As do I.
Nod your head a little bit.
Selectman Imke? Yeah. She's nodding too.
Yes.
All right.
I'm nodding.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, upcoming meetings. We have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday. What's the time on this Thursday?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. So we have a meeting scheduled for this Thursday at 6 p.m. And this is going to be via Zoom. The purpose is to appoint a third member to the Board of Assessors and also to making a modification to the alcohol license extended to St. Boniface for Oktoberfest. We will, again, meet next Tuesday, the 19th, and then we will resume our October meeting schedule, which will be the first 4 Tuesdays in October, starting on the 3rd. I'd like to remind everyone that tomorrow evening, September the 13th, make sure I'm correct, that we have a Discovery Center for Civic Engagement Volunteer Fair that starts at 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. I will be there. I hope you are there too. And this is at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center, located at 25 Memorial Drive. So if you have any questions, again, this is the Discovery Center for Civic Engagement Volunteer Fair. It's occurring tomorrow at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center, formerly known as the Senior Center. And again, those times are 4 to 7 p.m. Please come out if you are able. And then on October the 11th, we will have a ribbon cutting for the new ADA patio at the Lunenburg Adult Activity Center. That will occur at 12 p.m. I'm trusting that every member of the Select Board will be in attendance if they can. To the town manager, do you have any committee reports? I should have stopped at you earlier.
I don't know if it's a committee report, but I got a message from the facilities director because tonight was the hearing for the Ritter window project, and it was approved by the APDC. So just wanted to give that update.
That's excellent news.
That is amazing.
Yes.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you. And please thank him. I know that that was a lot of work to get that through.
I will. Yep. And the architect as well.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
It's not very often that late-breaking news is good news,
Yes.
so that's good. This is late-breaking good news.
That is great. All right, so we're going to turn to public comments this evening. Any public comments this evening from the town manager?
None.
Any from the public? Seeing none. Any from the board?
I do have a comment real
Yes.
quickly. So I was recently made aware that I will need to attend mandatory training for the National Guard. So I will be reporting to Oklahoma on October 18th, and I'll be there until the beginning of March. So this training is more like a semester at college than like boot camp. So I'll still be able to participate remotely. I know it's not ideal, but it's my goal to participate to the best of my ability while I'm gone. Obviously, I'll be doing so remotely, not in person. So it's my hope that it'll fly by, and you know, I'll be home in person before you know it. But I do apologize because I'm going to be making every vote a roll call vote for quite some time. But I'm confident that we can get through it.
All right.
It will give the chair a chance to perfect your name.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso. Here you go.
All right. And you know, if you need any help while you're away, just checking on your house, that kind of basic stuff, we can certainly help you out.
Thank you.
And as a friend, without anything, we're a team here, so we're a team. All right. And two, any other comments from the board?
I have, oh, sorry.
Yes.
Was somebody speaking? Oh, this is, I don't know if this was really a comment or a question. I was catching up on the town email, and I thought I saw something come through from the Boys and Girls Club about the toll booth this weekend because of the weather. I don't know if that was something that was decided upon, that we should announce the status.
Oh, they're doing
Yeah, they're gonna do a virtual.
toll
A
booth.
virtual, yeah.
Yeah, do
Is
you have,
that a definite?
Yes, I think they've made it a definite, from what, that's the way I read it at least. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I just want to make the public aware maybe. I don't know how they're going to communicate that.
I think they posted something, didn't they?
yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Selectman Imke. There was a scheduled toll booth for this weekend. We were notified by the Boys and Girls Club that they're going to be doing a virtual toll booth, as you just stated, but I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's just going to be a straight, fundraiser. So I'm guessing,
Yeah.
but I don't know. They may have something unique in mind, but there will be nobody in the streets.
Right. They don't, in their email, they don't say how they're
Right,
doing it.
right.
so.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing that up, Selectman Imke. All right, any other board comments this evening? All right, well, I want to thank everyone for their time. I know that tonight we did have to cancel a meeting with Flat Hill, and I know that that's a topic that's really important to several residents that we want to advance, so we are seeking to reschedule that at the first available opportunity to those who follow along. Again, thank everyone for being with us this evening. We are going to be meeting again this Thursday at 6 p.m. via Zoom, and then in this room next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right. This is a roll call vote. Selectman Imke.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
Selectman Nuzzello.
Aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye.
And an aye for myself, Michael Ray Jeffries. And the time is 8:56. All right, thank you all for joining us this evening. We trust you'll have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.